Does social justice and mathematics education mean for our students and teachers and families?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, so one way that we talk about this in the book, and I said this earlier, how do we use mathematics to read and write the world and make sense of the world? And yeah, and I know that sounds very high level, but I think how do we use mathematics to ask questions about the spaces in which we live and work and play? And I want students to begin so math is, we can ask questions about the why and the how and the what about where we live, work, and play. And how do we then model that for students so the students can ask these questions? And so when I use the example of the statue, it opened up the door for further conversation. I mean, one can call it you going down a rabbit hole, but one also can say you can be intentional in making the connection between the mathematics and the issue that's historical, and that also has social justice implications as well. And so it's the question that one begin to answer and begin to ask and begin to explore. So for me, social justice leads to sustained exploration. It leads to, if social justice is around voting rights issues, and people say, well, we need more voters. So what are we going to do to get more voters? How many more do we actually need? Right? And from where do we need those people to engage in voting? I mean, all of those questions, it just leads to other questions. You can say we need more voters, it's like, it has a ripple effect on those kinds of things. So for me, social justice is it's really about mathematizing our spaces and then but also getting people to ask those kinds of questions, and using the mathematics to answer those questions. And I say using math to answer those questions because one of the things I often say to my boys, when I say my boys, the MQ boys, is, you know, I love when you say, so many of them will say, well, I feel this way. Great. I love how that you feel this way. I need some of the math and some of the evidence behind why you feel with that way, right? And if you don't know it, what math do you need to know? What is the question? So what is the thing that you need to know? And I often say that because I'll be honest with you, I have a few mothers who often say, he's asking too many questions. But I say that, and it's not a negative thing. They're asking questions, that sometimes that, I know as a parent, that gets on my nerves. So when my boys would ask me, so why do you do this? Because I do it. That's the way I do it. That's the way I'm doing it. I ain't got, but there's something refreshing about that as well, right? They're asking questions, they're engaging. It builds this opportunity for discourse in families as well. And so when the mothers ask, well, they're asking too many questions, so what's the answer? I mean, how do you answer that question? Well, sometimes I don't know the answer. I said, that's a legitimate answer. That is perfectly okay to say, I don't know. But then, the follow-up is, let's find out together. I mean, there's an opportunity. And so yeah, so social justice is not a big grandiose thing. It can be the kind of the thing that is so localized. And when I say localized, it can be your home that you kind of engage in and engage around and think about. It could be just your street, your block, or what have you. Social justice can be a major national or state or community thing, but it also can be very localized in the terms of fairness. And kids love to talk about what's fair and what's not fair. And so to me, sometimes that is a social justice issue that we begin to unpack and think about as well.